Welcome to Ceasefire, where civics meets civility and engagement meets empowerment. Ceasefire is hosted by former Boerne ISD trustee and owner of the Boerne Bookshop, Dale Adams, and by former Boerne City Council member and local insurance agent, Ron Cisneros.
Good morning. Welcome to Ceasefire. My name is Dale Adams.
And I'm Ron Cisneros.
And today we're going to talk about who's behind the door. And this is a topic that it comes from my listening to people talk about businesses and corporations and entities and feeling that they're personifying everything. And I guess it's based on a rant of mine. But what I'd like to discuss, and I want you to challenge me on a lot of this because I need it on a regular basis. People talk about different entities in different ways. So if you're talking about a corporation, you may say, oh boy, those corporations, they're all bad for us. But then you talk about a nonprofit, oh, they're all so sweet, they help us out. And it bothers me because the corporation or the nonprofit or the government, they aren't a real person. Even though I know legally the corporations now have rights and stuff like that. That's a side issue. But it's a person in there that makes a decision. If you're mad about a corporation that did something, there's a person in that corporation that decided to pour sewage out on the street. That's the person you need to be talking to. And if you're mad about the government coming after you about something, there's a bureaucrat in there that decided, oh, we're going to check on this person because they haven't followed X, Y, or Z rule. There's a person there. And it bothers me that people try and tribalize ourselves against organizations when if they have a beef with somebody, they need to figure out the person.
Let me see if I understand where you're going with this. The Exxon Valdez. It wasn't Exxon that spilled all the oil on the Alaskan coast. It was the drunk ship captain that was in error, basically.
Or maybe his boss who kept him on the job after he had been drinking on multiple other jobs, if that's the case.
I don't remember the case.
I don't remember the case either. But it's not the company that caused the oil spill. It's the actions of individuals, whether it's the person who was drunk or wasn't watching the weather enough, or somebody who did something and didn't maintain some equipment that was needed to be maintained. It's a person that did the problem, did the bad thing that led to the problem. Let me give you an example. Okay, Cisneros is a company that made a blood detection device, and I don't even know what it was, but they lied about it in their prospectus and their statements to investors, and they built a lot of investors out of money and all this stuff. Elizabeth Holmes, the CEO of Cisneros, has been charged with all those crimes of deception and theft. And that's right. She's convicted. Now, Cisneros, of course, is bankrupt and all that, but it wasn't Cisneros that did it. It was the leader that did it. And I think frequently, I constantly hear about people complaining about a corporation, those big multinational corporations are so evil. Or even people complain about the government. Oh, I hate the government. I can understand that a little bit. But it's important to remember that there's a person behind that's making it do what you don't like. So if I complain about the government smothering my ability to expand my business, then you really have a person with somebody in there who has too much power. Now, you may say it's the government has all this power, but it's somebody in there pulling the levers, and that's what you need to approach. And I think if we identify so much with blaming the entity and not the person, then we don't understand how power is being utilized, and we lose sight of how we manage power in our society. And I think that's one thing that's led to our government gaining so much power over the years, over the centuries, and now has almost absolute power because people say that corporation shouldn't be allowed to do that. So let's let the government decide what that corporation can do. And they're just pitting one entity against another.
This reminds me of something you and I have talked about a lot, and we did a show on, and that was the idea of lobbyists being evil. And they're all evil until they're on your side for something. They advocate for something that you like. And so the problem is that we think in terms of them being bad because most of the time, or we think most of the time, they're against us. If you're anti-gun, then you hate the NRA. And so you always think lobbyists are bad. And you never think about the time that lobbyists are working for your cause. Yeah. And so I think a similar thing is happening here in what you're talking about is that corporations are all evil, right? Yeah. But there are corporations that are doing good things and they're making products that you want, But we say, here are terms that drive me crazy: big pharma,
Yeah.
big oil,
Yes.
big government. And it's not big pharma, it's people in the pharmaceutical industry that are doing things that you don't like.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when we say big pharma or big oil, we are consigning guilt or blame to an entity that's not going to get punished for anything,
Right.
for any wrongdoing.
It may not even really exist. When people talk about these entities like Big Pharma or the military-industrial complex, I don't even know what that means sometimes, because it's the people that are doing things. If you're complaining about some lobbyist bribing a governor, then there's a crime there. That
Right.
person bribed somebody. It's not the company that's doing it. It's the person. And I honestly think it's a sort of an abdication of trying to understand what's going on, saying it's all bad and it's this big gray thing over there that's doing bad stuff, instead of saying, I don't think people should be allowed to give $1 million to the governor. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. Then bring that issue up. Yeah.
It reminds me of a real life story here. This happened, it's something my wife and I experienced. We went up to Austin to go meet up with some friends. This was shortly after Coca-Cola acquired the rights to Topo Chico. I think I've shared this with you before. And so we're sitting in some friends' homes, and I was looking for a Topo Chico, and he said, no, we won't buy that anymore because they've gone corporate. They were corporate already. They were owned by a Mexican company. Now they're owned by an American company. But later that evening, we went to this whiskey bar, one of these highfalutin places in Austin, like everything else there. And I asked for a Topo Chico, and the bartender says, oh, no, we don't carry them anymore. They're corporate. This is a general idea that all corporations are bad. Eventually did get me a mineral drink, but it was from some small company somewhere in Texas.
It's corporate.
Who was incorporated, exactly. But it's these terms that we use that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's just a way to assign blame to something without really getting to the root cause of what it is that's bothering you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go over a couple of ways I think about these organizations. Now, we talk about the types of organizations, the mom and pops that everybody loves, right? Love that, supposedly. We talk about private companies and public companies. And once again, we have this thing in our mind, a private company, they're okay. Public companies, oh, that's nice. Corporations, governmental agencies, nonprofit organizations, all these labels carry connotations that guide our thinking. And I wish we'd stop doing that. We've talked about labels before, and I think we use them a lot when it comes to companies, because most people don't know who runs any company. Nobody knows these people. Lee Iacocca, okay, we knew that, but nobody knows hardly any of the leaders now. But as I was thinking about this, I thought about other things about entities in organizations and ways you can look at splitting them up other than by these labels that make people feel happy or mad about them. One of the ways I thought about it was how they get their money. And this will maybe go contrary to the way people think about some of these labels. There are some organizations that take money. That's the government, taxes, fines, such like that. So there's a segment of organizations that when they want money, they take it. Okay, that doesn't sound so nice. There's another set of organizations that beg for money. Now, that doesn't sound so nice either, but that's all our nonprofits.
Right.
They ask for money, and we give them to them. And I think that's a good thing, because the people giving the money decide if that cause is good or not. And so that's a good accountability issue for them. But it needs to be remembered that those organizations beg for money. Okay? So you can take or you can beg. There's a third way to get money, and that's to trade it. You can produce something or do something for somebody, and they will provide you money, a transactional event. And that's the corporations. Now, in my book, that is actually the most honest, best way to get money, because you are providing a service or product for somebody, and they are providing money or a service or product for you. That's a transactional thing. And I think that's the best way for money or power to trade hands. And yet it's these private sector companies that are vilified the most, even though they are the ones doing the transactional type of gaining money and power.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
And I like it because it's a way that we really don't think about things that way. But I think you can think about that, and it makes you think differently.
Yeah. You mentioned mom and pops, and what I've always found interesting is that we give them a lot of grace.
Yes.
And I don't have anything against mom and pop businesses. Essentially, you're a mom and pop
Yeah.
business. I'm a mom and pop business. Love mom and pop businesses. But the mom and pop businesses can't always guarantee you that their products are GMO products, right? Or that they're child labor free products. A lot of these large corporations that get a bad rap can do those sort of things, and they
Right.
can deliver goods at a price lower than the mom and pop can.
Yeah.
We tend to speak of them as entities that have an unfair advantage over mom and pops, forgetting that every one of these large corporations began as a mom and pop,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Whataburger
Yep.
changes hands, and now everybody says, "Oh, it doesn't taste the same." I haven't noticed a difference in taste. Honestly, I do expect a change to happen at some point. They're going to figure out ways to get the food out faster, and it might diminish the quality. But I haven't discerned any change in the quality of their food yet. But because it changed hands from a Texas-owned company into some private equity firm in Illinois somewhere, now it's terrible and it's evil and the burgers suck. And I'm like, really? It's a Dairy Queen was a local thing at one time. McDonald's was a local thing at one time. And every one of those aspired to grow, to find success and create success for its employees and to leave something behind for their heirs. And when these companies grow, suddenly they're terrible, they're evil, they're corporate, they're not good anymore. We've erased the faces and the people away from these corporations and just made them the bad guy.
Yeah, yeah. There's a local example, actually. I remember when James Avery came to Boerne, and I heard some people complaining about it, that this corporate jeweler was coming to Boerne. And I was like, wait a minute. They're from Kerrville and Comfort, and this is the local guys doing well.
Yeah.
And I thought that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they're national now. I was astounded about it because I thought it was awesome that this local little Kerrville company dominated. HEB's the same way. Everybody loves their HEB, of course. But it was started in Kerrville and spread across the state. Now it's corporate, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we all love it because it's really good.
Yeah, once they move into New York, they'll be terrible.
They'll be terrible.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot too about small companies that they do all kinds of things for their employees and all kinds of things for the public. They'll go out in the community and do scholarships like big corporations do too.
Yes, they do.
On a larger scale.
Yeah. You look around here, you get GVTC does a lot of local scholarships and items and stuff like that. And yet they're a corporation. We're going to take a quick break from our discussion on organizations. This is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We'll be back in just a moment. Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop. We pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop. Welcome back to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. And Ron was just telling me that if I was a corporate bookstore, then I would have coffee in my store.
And pastries.
And pastries. I probably would.
Like a really nice croissant.
Yeah.
Real flaky on the outside.
Just don't want to do the food, man. And as a mom and pop, I can make that decision.
And then as a consumer,
because I'm the guy behind the door.
That's right.
I make that decision.
And as a consumer, I can make a choice to go to Barnes & Noble and get my coffee.
You can, yeah.
Except I don't want to drive into San Antonio. Support Dale. Yeah, I am totally behind you, Dale, until you open up your second location. Then you've gone corporate, and I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, that'll be bad. That'll be bad. I do get people coming in and saying, we need you to move to Fredericksburg or New Braunfels. And I'm like, no, that's too far. We were talking about organizations and the types. And I guess my sort of little rant about how people try and personify corporations and then blame them. And we really need to look at who's running them and hold those people accountable or praise them if they're doing something awesome. And I just like to see more of that, I guess, when I talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree off the subject here, but what are your thoughts on these corporations or these things, these entities, when they go out and they make political statements or they stand for social causes? Because I think you're talking about there are people behind it, and there are people that have decided. Let's talk about Bud Light for example. I'll just use
we're going to go there.
It was recent. It happened last year, and eventually we find out that it was really that one young lady, I can't remember her name, that decided, hey, this is the direction we're going to go. Right. We're going to market to a completely different group of people. That it turned out that Bud Light was real popular in gay clubs. They had marketed towards that, but they had alienated in doing this advertising or going in this new direction. They had alienated a bunch of their core audience. Yeah. It was so bad that the entire company has suffered now.
Yeah.
And there are guys that go into these great gigs, driving these delivery trucks, selling the Bud Light products to places like Mr. D's, moving all this product, and they couldn't move their product anymore. And they get harmed because of a person or maybe a board, but or several people deciding this is the direction we're going to go in, and they don't really think about all of the other people involved in the company that are going to get harmed by this decision. And we as the consumer decide, okay, I'm done with Bud Light. I don't like that message. And I'm not saying me personally. I'm just saying in general, that's what happened. There was this backlash.
You love Bud Light?
I don't drink Bud Light.
Oh, okay.
I don't drink light beer.
I don't either.
Yeah, the heavier the better.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's you name the product. I have
Ben and Jerry's. They have their products. I think that's a great point because that's exactly the same thing that happens because people think, okay, Ben and Jerry's has this opinion. I'm sorry, Ben and Jerry's can't think. It's a logo.
Right.
Bud Light doesn't think, doesn't make those decisions. It's a person there. And honestly, I know we've got the new agreement where corporations can donate to political causes and all that kind of stuff, but I think the president should be the one that says, I think this. The president of the company should say, I think this or that. And they always put it in the frame of the company because I guess they want more clout.
Right.
Out of their opinion, but that's misleading because the company doesn't think that. It's the person, and I'd much rather see the person say, I believe in this or that or the other thing. Yeah.
I can see how consumers would get frustrated with a company and they want to punish them at the register for taking a stance on something. But like you said, it's people behind that decision, and it's not everybody.
Definitely not.
And I remember somebody in your bookstore actually challenging me about wearing Adidas tennis shoes all the time. And it's not, you remember this, right? Yeah. They support this and they support that. And it's, where am I going to go to Nike? They support causes I don't stand behind. I mean,
make your own shoes.
Eventually, either I make my own shoes or I go shoeless. It's how far do we take this?
Yeah.
It's some person in Germany, and I forget the name of the town where they're headquartered. Even if I remembered it, I couldn't pronounce it. But anyway, it's a person or a handful of people or a board that's saying, okay, we're going to get behind this cause that we know that people in Texas aren't behind. We don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
Throw away my shoes?
Yeah. No, don't do that. Never do that.
I can make a counter to that a little bit.
Ooh, I want to hear it.
Okay, so like for me, for a little while, I stopped buying Coca-Cola because I don't know if you remember back in...
Oh, yeah. Stop being so white, Lexi.
Yeah. They had training saying how to be less white.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Those
and
things. Yeah.
To me, even though it was probably someone's decision in HR and they wanted to have these viewpoints, that had to get approved in multiple different places. But also, how can the consumer or how can we as people say, no, that's wrong? If we didn't put our foot down and say, I'm done buying Coca-Cola, then they would just continue or went further with the issue. So same thing with Bud Light. Yes, did that hurt mom and pops or hurt people who bought into those products and then it paused sales? Yes. But unfortunately, how else are you going to learn your lesson of what you did was wrong? And in my sense, too, thinking if you are a business, that anything you do is going to be a risk. If you are going to buy into a certain company, a certain product, anything's going to be a risk of it. So yes, it might have hurt them, but also personally for me, you took that risk, and it's just like stocks and bonds. You can put money into a stock and you put your money in that risk and it can go down instantly.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed for you.
And that's a great point because, and I think it underscores a little bit about this whole, there's somebody making a decision there. but that person makes a decision to have the corporation make a statement is what I don't like. And then if the corporation is going to make that statement, if they're going to have the corporation make a statement, then yeah, I do think the market or the populace can push back and say, you've overstepped.
Yeah.
And I think in those cases, I think there was quite a bit of overstepping. There's also corporations that try and garner support by supporting popular causes. Donating money, Musk is sending a rocket up to the space station to rescue those astronauts.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Right.
And honestly, it's Musk doing it. He's the one that says, go do it. But his company, SpaceX, is going to get some good PR out of that.
Right.
And so there's the positive side, too. I'd like to call for more of the individual recognition of who's behind either the good or the bad side of what happens.
Yeah, I think ultimately we just need to remember that because something is a corporation doesn't necessarily and automatically make it bad.
And that's what's happened.
Yeah, and that's what's happened. And Lexi, I agree with you. I think people do need to, they're voting with their feet. They're going to say, okay, because I stopped using Coca-Cola products for a while too until they backed off of that. I never had to back away from Bud Light because I never liked Bud Light. That was an easy one for me. But also the shareholders, I think, in those stocks have a responsibility too.
And they do, and you see the stocks go up and down
in
response to those a lot of times too.
And I think they can put pressure on the companies and say, hey, you're affecting my bottom line when you go out and make those statements. I don't think it's wrong to tell a company, focus on your product.
Yeah, I agree.
Republicans drink light beer. I know a few of them. Yeah. No friends of mine. But
yes, come on. But the interesting thing about the stock market, and this is getting way off topic, is that it's not as responsive to those issues as we would like to see it, because most of the stock market is managed by pension funds, money management funds, mutual funds. And their incentives for how they do things is not the same as the consumer. It's going to be based on how they think the company's going to do, but also a lot of times it's based on their own personal beliefs and whether they agree with it or not. And so it's not always just based on how the business is sticking to its roots or anything like that. So I don't have as much confidence in the stock market doing corrective behavior on things like that than I do on the customers, the market doing it.
Yeah.
I have seen, if you remember, I want to say it was 2022, stocks definitely can make a statement for the people. If you remember GameStop and how
yes, that was interesting.
The debacle with GameStop and people were downing the stocks, and everyday people were like, no, you know what? I'm putting my money into GameStop, and GameStop just rocket through. So I think there is a point that us smaller folk and everyday citizens can put their footprint on things. It's just coming together and doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think today I don't actually have a special book for today, but
all the books are special in your store.
They are all special. They're all unique and special, just like us. So if you're looking for any kind of book, we've got it, or we can find it. We'll track it down, and even if it's not still in print, we can tell you to go to abesbooks.com and buy a used copy or something like that.
There you go.
Another corporation there. Yeah.
Hey, folks, if you like what you hear on the show and you want to get some more of it, Dale and I would like to invite you to Whiskey and Wisdom, a new book club that started late last year, and we meet every other month.
And that will be the third Thursday of June, August, October, and December.
Please join us. We're going to have an assortment of whiskeys there and a great conversation about a very interesting book. Hope to see you there.
But thanks for listening to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. And if you missed any of it, you can go to BoerneRadio.com and check out our podcast and listen to our old shows and tune into our new ones. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Have a good week.
Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop, and we pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop.